Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasudhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasudhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasudhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamana Theravana Chari Jamana Theravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamana Theravana Chari Jamana Theravana Chari Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radha. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radha. Jaya Radha, Jaya Radha, Jaya Radha, Jaya Sri Radha. Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva. Nitai Gaur Hari Bha, Hari Bha, Hari Bha, Bolo Hari Bha. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Tatat Systema of the Divine Grace is Kampanacharya Srila Bhaktivinod Bhaktivinod Swami Papa Maharaj Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Tatat Systema of the Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Papa Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavena Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem si kahao si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda si Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari si Gaura Bhaktivinod Thakur. Sisi Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Syamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Savindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Srimati Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinod Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the Sama devotees. All glories to the Sama devotees. All glories to the Sama devotees. All glories to Sisi Gaura and Gauranga. Amaganat Mirandasya, Ganajanan Salakaya, Saksur Militam Jena Tasmai, Si Guruve Namaha. Suchetaya Manovistam, Stavi Tam Jena Bhutale. Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandasi Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodata Gadadhaya Paspavanto Chitta Chanda Tamonanda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Si Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinod. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivinod Swami Itinam Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaura Vani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sonya Vadi Pasatya Disatari Panchakalpatari Dacha Kripa Sundabhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanabhya. So you're welcome to this morning discussion. Instead of the Bhagavatam class, I was instructed to say something or to share something about Bhaktivinod Thakur because today is his disappearance day. And as we may know, Bhaktivinod Thakur is a very prominent acharya in our line of disciplic succession, and not just prominent but very distinctive. Distinctive in the sense that most of his qualities are not obtainable in other acharyas, because majority of our acharyas are sannyasis, but he's a grihastha, or he was a grihastha, and generally speaking, we tend to think that except you renounce or you become a brahmachari, that you're not going anywhere. Is it correct? Is it correct? But Bhaktivinod Thakur was a householder, and he was superlatively pure devotee with special distinctions. And one of those distinctions is that he maintained a very huge family. How many? What was his family? 11 what? 11 children. Who is married here with a wife? Or who has 2 kids here? Ladies? Anybody with 2 kids? The men, anybody with 3 kids? 3 kids? 4? Okay. You still have a very long way to go. So Bhaktivinoda had a very huge family, and one of those things I was reading about him, which really drew my attention, was how he was able to manage his time amidst his busy schedule of taking care of his family. Imagine he had 11 children, his wife is there, and himself is there. So, what's the population of that community? So, that is called a community. So, for you to lead a community, and not just leading a community, doing several other things, you are also an acharya. That's not a joke. And then, you are also a judge. You serve also in the judiciary. So it's like doing, how many times? 3 works, 3 jobs. In America, it's so common. People do 2 jobs and all these things, 3 jobs, because they want plenty of money. So Bhaktivinod Thakur, he had a big family, but he was attentive to his family needs. He did not use Krishna as a facade to not be attentive to his family needs. You know, sometimes we have a family, and you should hear this. Aribo, you should hear this. This is very beneficial. Sometimes we have a family, and we use Krishna's seva as a smoke screen, not to give attention to our family. Not only the men, the women also do that. So there is a lot we can learn from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life. Although he had a huge family, very demanding job, a magistrate, and he had to embark on very strenuous sadhana. Yet, he gave quality time to his wife and children. He was a devotee, very serious devotee. He could easily tell his wife that, I'm very busy, because of Krishna service. Had to wake up to write, had to chant. But no, he knew that he was involved in different services. Service to his family, service to the government, and service to Krishna. And none of these areas was easy. And one of those things that we could appreciate in Bhaktivinod's life is how he was such, we talk about Lion Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta, right? But that is just an element of Bhaktivinod Thakur. He was beyond a lion guru. So I give you an example. When he was serving at Puri as a magistrate, there was a case that even the British, the Brits, the government was afraid, the officials were afraid to deal with it. And they have to come to meet him that this case is for you. Someone has to do the dirty job. But it wasn't a dirty job. That was the case of this yogi, Bishaki Sen. Some of you have heard that story, right? Yeah.
in the seventh Goswami is so detailed. Now, that book took the title from the assertion of Bhaktivinod's contemporary at the time. And he wrote to Bhaktivinod Thakur that, I can't remember his name, but he was a famous publication editor. So he wrote to Bhaktivinod Thakur to say that he had not seen the 6 Goswamis, but he said, I consider you the 7th Goswami. That was someone who observed his activities, his spiritual involvements, his evolutionary trends, his participation in the so-called world affair without being affected. So, in the case of Bisakishin, where the British officials were afraid because he was a mystic yogi. And any one of us here could be afraid of Bisakishin. So they entrusted his case. He was someone who was advertising himself that he was Mahavishnu. And in those days, even today, anywhere, not only in India, if some spiritualists come to display some little bit of mystic city, your followership will know no bounds. You can't blame the general mass of people. They are not aware, they don't have any knowledge, no information culture about mystic perfection. Now in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, the details of the different type of cities and how people acquire them, they are there. So this yogi, he had attained such a high mystical perfection, and he was claiming to be Mahavishnu. And people, he had, a large followership. And so his case came to the government. People reported him to the government. I think especially the people in Bringapore, he was messing around with their wives, some of the Brahmins' wives. Because he will engage in so-called rasa dance with other people's wives and pollute them. And you know what? Power is blinding. Power can make someone blind. And instead of using his powers positively, he used his mystic powers for self-aggrandizement. Bhaktivinod used that word in his autobiography. That this yogi used his mystic powers for self-aggrandizement. There's nothing wrong in having some powers. And Krishna specifically mentioned in the Bhagavatam that the only problem with mystic power is that it distracts significantly from the path of bhakti. And so many of us, we are attracted to mystic powers. But if you get the power, if you're not able to control your senses, you can abuse it. That was the case of Bisakishin. So when he messed around with some ladies and members of a Bringapore community became so much aggrieved, they reported him to the government. But the British officials were afraid to arrest him, to deal with him. So they entrusted the matter into the care of Bhaktivinod Thakur. Now Bhaktivinod Thakur had to go to that place, what's the name? Saradepo. In the jungle, near a village called Saradepo. That was where Bisaki established his center, his temple. So Bhaktivinod went there with some police officers. And he got there in the night. So Bisaki he knows Bhaktivinod has come. He knows it's a Bengali. He knows he's a magistrate at Puri. He knew everything about Bhaktivinod. So he engaged Bhaktivinod Thakur in a discussion. He said, "Why have you come here this night?" He said, Bhaktivinod said, "I came to see you." So if you come to see me, then sit down and listen to my teachings. The point here about this encounter is that if there is a crisis, then we know who is an authentic devotee. If there is no crisis, anyone can claim to be, Parker. So Bisaki he told Bhaktivinod Thakur everything. He said, "You came with some people, and some of they are hiding, behind some trees. I know why you came here, but if you don't take care, desist from this. If you don't desist from your attempts, you'll be miserable." So he won Bhaktivinod Thakur right on the spot. So Bhaktivinod Thakur was very determined. Now, determination is such an easy concept or a phenomenon that anyone could imbibe, but determination for what? For Krishna? If it is for Krishna, if it is for Krishna to protect Krishna's image, if it is for preaching, that's okay. Otherwise, anyone could be determined. So, Bisaki threatened Bhaktivinod Thakur. And he didn't budge. Bhaktivinod Thakur didn't budge. So he engaged him in discussion, and that night he went to the village and made some investigations. He went to some nearby villages and made some investigation. In fact, he went to sleep at some place in the village that Saradepo. And then he made some further investigations about this very yogi. And he gets sufficient evidence for prosecution. Because the law, in the legal system, someone, you will not really have anything to do with any so-called criminal except you have evidence. So he gathered his evidence firsthand. And so he came. He requested for reinforcement. And then more than 100 law enforcement agents were sent. So he came with these law enforcement agents to meet the yogi and told him that he was wanted for questioning in Puri. And the yogi just expressly told him he was not going anywhere. Now, no one has any right to try to arrest Mahavishnu. He is Mahavishnu. So Bhaktivinod Thakur, he actually preached to him, but he was also very, very straightforward with him that, people like you, Sisupal, Ravana, so many other small demons, they pose this type of threat, but ultimately they were destroyed. They preached to him, but his consciousness is polluted with his so-called mystic powers. At some point in time, in the process of trying to convince him to come to Puri, he got really angry, he got really upset. And he shook his head. Keep in mind, he had a matted hair, big matted hair. He shook his head, and there were fiery snakes coming out from his head. And so the police who came back to him, they were just too terrified. Imagine a human being, and then some fiery snakes are coming out from his head. What can your gun do? Although they were armed, but they were terribly afraid. So Bhaktivinod, the point here is that as a magistrate, he was not supposed to go and execute that arrest. That's the job of the law enforcement agents. But because the British government understood that the law enforcement agents were afraid of this yogi, and Bhaktivinod didn't know that he's a devotee, he's fearless. So they told him, you go do it. So he kept calm, and at some point in time, because Bhaktivinod Thakur was pretty calm, at the same time very straightforward to the point. See, Bhaktivinod ordered for a bull cart to be brought, and then they brought the bull cart. So he requested the yogi to enter the bull cart to onward to Puri. Initially, he declined, but later he accepted, and then he boarded the bull cart. And as they were going, the yogi was exhibiting all types of mystic powers, and the police officers were highly terrified. But you know what Bhaktivinod was doing at that time? He was writing his judgment. So, eventually they came to Puri, and the trial of Bisakishin started. But it wasn't that easy. If you read the details of that story in the 7th Goswami, it will give one a lot of conviction about the surrender of the pure devotee to Lord Krishna. How the pure devotee is sacrifices his life and is ready to die for Lord Krishna. That was the mood of Bhaktivinod Thakur. Instead of this terrible blasphemy to go on, he was ready to sacrifice his life. And he suffered. The yogi even tried to kill him during the trial. One day, the yogi told him, all right, you go to your house and see what is happening. Go to your home and see what is happening. So he went home that day, and then found out his second daughter, Kandabini, was just about to die. She was terribly sick. And the family knew it's coming from this yogi. So, Bhaktivinod arranged for some doctors to come. They tried to help. And then the next morning, she recovered. And then one day, when Bhaktivinod came back to his house, when he came back to his house, he was feeling a very sharp pain on the right side of his chest. And when you have a sharp pain on your chest, that is a very bad signal. And he did everything possible. It was not subsiding. However, the next day, he realized some type of little relief, but he could not still walk. He was taken to the court with a palanquin. See what it takes to risk one's life for serving Krishna. That's why I mentioned that anyone can claim to be a devotee. Anyone can claim to be a very paka devotee. But when there is a crisis, we know whether you will decline, you will protect yourself, or you will still sustain your vigor for protecting the image of the Lord. So he was taken. When he was taken in a palanquin to the court, and then they continued with the judgment. This trial took a number of days before it was concluded. And at some point in time, because this yogi, he had gained so much of strong followership. Some members of the community in Odisha, they collected funds and hired a lawyer to come and defend this yogi. You see the power of the yogi? And when the court was in session, I remember some reference from the Srila Goswami. The court was in session. There were like thousands of people outside the court agitating for the unconditional release of the yogi. He was very powerful and he had a strong followership. But Bhaktivinod did not give a damn. He prosecuted his service. He tried this yogi and eventually found him guilty with sufficient evidence. And his sentence was 18 months imprisonment. 18 months imprisonment. Now, there was the chief medical officer at that time. His name was Walters, because he had read some things about the power of yogis. So when the judgment was passed out, he jumped on Bisakisin with a big scissors and cut off his ears, his mounted ears. And when that was done, the yogi fell. He had no power again. So the power was on his mounted ears. He was put in a stretcher and taken out onwards to prison. And some of his followers, when they saw that, they felt, and they even openly said, oh, he's a cheat. He was supposed to serve in jail for 18 months, but he did not complete that term of service. He committed suicide. So the bottom line is that to be a frontline devotee is not an easy joke. There are so many challenges that people face when they have to be in the front line in serving Lord Krishna. So Bhaktivinod Thakur is a typical case where attempt on his life was even made by a yogi, but Krishna protected him. Yes, he got affected, he got sick terribly, but he recovered. So when we are trying to be devotees, we should understand that the more we struggle to become perfected souls, the more we are nearing the edge of higher challenges. When the challenges come, we should not be deterred. We should remember the story of Bhaktivinod Thakur. A yogi even tried to kill him because he was doing his service, but he was not wavered. I had some comments or some questions on this point. Yes. There is so much stuff about Bhaktivinod Thakur, and I just decided that I should talk on this because this is very instructive for the
Maharaj,
teachers.
thank you for the wonderful class. You have said that when there is no impediments, everybody can say that I am Pakka devotee, and but it is when the impediments come that we come to know that how much Pakka we are.
Yes.
So Maharaj, how do we know that we are ready for these impediments to face?
How do we know that we are ready for this impediment? Whether we are ready or not, challenges will come. I remember when I joined, in the early periods that I joined, I had a friend. He was a senior devotee. So he had some challenges. Then I was discussing with him. I was like upset, And then he told me, "Oh, Vasudev, you should daily pray for your challenges to come." Because you will have the challenges. So you better pray for it to come so that you can pass through. So whether we like it or not, challenges will come. Maya is not just, resting and just watching us and saying, "Oh, wonderful." No, the test will. If you are in college, you go to university, you're doing a particular degree program. Every semester you have exams. Even before the exams, you have tests. So the devotees, we face tests. Some people cannot meet up, they run away. It's like in the military, people are in the war front and they can't face the crossfire. Then they run away from the war, from the battleground. So Bhaktivinod Thakur did not run away from the battleground. He was determined and he was successful. In fact, his wife told him when the daughter was so sick and he was also sick, the wife said, "Leave this man alone, leave this yogi alone." And you know what Bhaktivinod Thakur, his response? He said, "Let us all die for this." He was not afraid of death. So it's not a question of whether we are ready for it or not. The stories we are hearing should give us determination to be able to face the challenges when they come. Prabhupada had challenges. In New York, someone attacked him. They stole his computer. They tried to cheat him in Juhu, for a land. It's so spiritual life and, easy journey, they go ill together. Spiritual life and easy journey, they go ill together. There's no easy journey in spiritual life. We must face challenges. The challenges may come from any angle. Yes. Yes, Mataji?
Just like Daksha was asked to create progeny, up to previous generation, I've seen personally among Gujarati families, when they first get married and they get blessing, they go to get blessings from the elders. Everybody blesses them. May you have 10 sons. May you have 10 children. So what happens is that in Fiji, I know from up to my generations, there were 18 to 20 children. Those were Indians that were taken to Fiji from one wife,
wow.
Unlike other countries. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes, in some cultures, having many children is a wealth. But even one child, to train up one child these days is a problem. In America, you have to pay so much, thousands of dollars to send your child to a university. So if you have one child, and you can't tell the child that, John, I'm a Vaishnava, okay, I don't have money. Having children, that's a responsibility for it. You have to train them in Krishna consciousness. I was just speaking with one devotee, and I very much appreciate. I've seen his child right from when he was a toddler. He's now walking and all this stuff. But he was so much, and he's an Indian boy. He is very un-Indian. Because in India, it's the women who take care of the children. I see him constantly with his son, bringing him to temple and everything. So, and he's the breadwinner. That could happen when the woman is the one who is a professional, who is working, and the man has no job. But he is a breadwinner. So to take care of a child is not so easy. So those who are planning to have many children, just understand that. Don't imitate Bhaktivinod Thakur. Yes, Prabhu?
We read that at a certain point, Bhaktivinod Thakur gave up his wife and became a Babaji, took Babaji initiation, which is like a type of sannyas. So how, as a sannyasi or in the renounced order, somebody can give up their, not have a missus or a life's partner, a better half, cellmate, and be happy.
Yeah, Bhaktivinod, he led a household life, and then at some point in time, he took Babaji initiation. And it is important for any serious devotee to understand that at some point in time, they have to dedicate their life solely, to concentrate solely on Krishna, so that you don't have any distraction. If you are if you are married, if your wife is also a serious devotee, good. But even then, sometimes some people, they will prefer that at some point in time. I've seen some Prabhupada disciples, although their wives are also very much involved in Krishna consciousness, but the planning of how to become disengaged from active married life to concentrate on preaching, or concentrate on sadhana to prepare for death. It's imperative. Our system, someone is married, there's a provision for someone to take to Vanaprastha. I remember, there's a number of these days, the good thing in ISKCON is that women, you don't worry. The good days in ISKCON is that your husband cannot just leave you and take Vanaprastha without you giving an authority. I remember, one of my friends, his wife openly told me in the US, no, we have to be together for the rest of our life. Which Vanaprastha? He's a devotee, I'm a devotee. So which Vanaprastha? So, and I remember I went one country, one lady, she ran to me and complained about the husband, that she had, the husband is planning to take Vanaprastha. I said, you don't worry. You have to give the certification. You have to append your signature that he has fulfilled, prescribed conditions. There are prescribed conditions for someone to leave his wife to take Vanaprastha, to take sannyas. It's not like before where, anyone can just run away from the family, or children are there and then they just run away and say, I'm taking sannyas. No, it's not like that again. There are laws in ISKCON that forbid that, because the women need to be protected. Our children need to be protected. So yeah, Bhaktivinod, it took Babaji initiation to focus and prepare for death. Bhaktivinod, he appeared in 1838 and he left the planet in 1914. All right, conscious of the time, Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur ki jai.